Well, I am ready to crank on this truck again. And by crank, I mean literally crank the engine. I have done a bunch of work to it since I last updated you. I haven't been really, it sat all winter, let's be honest. I was busy doing other things, and so it was on the back burner. But this last couple of weeks, I've been going pretty good. And the main task was the exhaust, which I have basically completed. I haven't totally clamped it together, but it's all in place and together. My tailpipe, I ended up coming out here. I know I had talked about cutting a hole in the fender, and I just couldn't bring myself to do that. Plus, with the height the truck's at now, there's lots of clearance for exhaust. So I dumped it out the side there. We got the high temp trim clad on there. It's not high temp, guys. It's trim clad, whatever. Well, no matter what I paint it with, it burns off. But anyways, not stainless exhaust, just mild steel. I think I've talked about that. It's been so long since I updated you. I'm not sure. But yeah, I've got things hokey wired in. I've got my throttle. So what's changed since the last time I tried to start this and it made those funky noises and didn't go? The main one is the exhaust. I've got a full exhaust on the truck. O2 sensors are plugged in. Not the rear, obviously. The downstream are going to be omitted. So just the primary O2s. And what else have I done? Well, quite a bit, I guess. Coolant systems in. Really, the truck, aside from the unknown, and until I drive it, I won't know. Is my drive shaft way out of balance? Is various things, transmission, problems, whatever. But the main thing is still the wiring. Obviously, wiring, always wiring. But here, I've just tucked it all in this corner. My ECM's down there, fuse panels here, but I've powered everything up. Seems okay. I don't have a fuel pump on a relay yet. I want to run that through here, but just on a switch. And same with my fans. My fans aren't hooked up yet, and I would like to. This came out of a truck that had a mechanical fan with a clutch on a belt, belt-driven fan, old school. And so there's no relays in the spot for fan relays, but there are 2 spots for fan relays. And so I feel like there's no reason why I can't make it work. And, the ECM should be able to operate that. So I may need help getting that. Oh, man, I need help, guys, But anyway, for now, I'm not going to run it long enough to worry about a fan. And fuel pump, I just have a wire direct to the battery. So for as long as it is running, it'll just be plugged in that way. But same thing there. I'll use a spot here to run the fuel pump, but I'm going to run it just on a switch I'll have a switch in the cab to turn it on and off, because the system that this engine used, the ECM would have controlled the fuel based on a non-return style system. And so because I have the return filter regulator, I'll just turn the pump on and leave it on for when I'm running. So yeah, that I haven't done just because I really need to hear the thing run before I spend any more time and energy, tidying up wiring. But obviously there's a lot of tidying to be done. I need to basically relume the whole engine harness. I had taken it apart so that I could remove stuff I didn't need. And then my induction, I haven't quite sorted out. This top rad hose is not great. It'd be good if I had a 90 or even a 45 fitting here on the pump, because then I could keep this hose down lower, and then I'd have room above it to run my elbow and whatever intake pipe and filter I decide. So right now I have my throttle pedal hooked up in the cab. I'm going to crank from in the cab. The only thing missing, I guess, in terms of what this engine likes to know is my mass airflow. I don't have plugged in. No idea whether that is a huge factor or not. But basically everything that I've learned or read about or whatever, these things should run. They'll just run poorly if they're missing information, right? So not sure what my issue was before. I might still have exactly the same issue, but now at least I can crank without lighting the world on fire. It can pop and fart, and I can add some throttle, give it some air, just basically hoping that that's enough to at least make it stutter to life. Clearly we're going to need some tuning and whatnot, because things are not the same here as they were in an express van. But yeah, I'll set you up here and let's see how big the fireballs are today. Well, we still don't have it. I had gone through the tune and sort of started from scratch and made sure my VATs were deleted. And on these Gen 4s, there's a starter diagnostic of some kind. Deleted that. And also starter, whatever. Anything starter related I disabled. I also, on a... and I know, you shouldn't do a bunch of things at one time, but just going through, I saw spark cuts and fuel cuts in terms of traction control. And I suddenly had this thought, because I don't have my speed a vehicle speed sensor of any kind hooked up yet. It's reading like 158 miles per hour. And so my thinking was, well, maybe it figures we're in a death spin here, and so it's cutting everything it can, fuel, spark, whatever, timing, in order to solve that non-existent problem. And so I disabled all of that. And as you could hear, they're cranking exactly the same. It doesn't seem to matter what I do. I have this, it sings the same music. Although now at least I can crank it and not be afraid that I'm going to start the world on fire with, I have an exhaust under it now. So yeah, still something wrong. And I don't know yet what it is. All very new to me, this stuff. And this is, one of the reasons why this has been put off, this project, because I don't know. I'm sort of throwing darts at a wall here and see if all of a sudden this thing is just going to start and run. I know it is, but I haven't figured out yet what's wrong. The other issue is fuel pressure. I'm wondering if that's part of it. Like, this pump is, it's putting out 58 psi constant, and this system had I don't know if it was a variable pressure. Like, certainly the pump was controlled by the ECM in a non-return setup. So it could be that something totally needs to be changed in the tune for it to even start, which seems odd to me. Like, the way it's firing out the exhaust, and it is getting fuel enough to do that. It's the previous time around I had pulled all the plugs, 8 times and, you know, checked each individual coil, and everything was, you know, I was getting spark at every single cylinder. And so it is getting spark and fuel, and seemingly at the wrong time. And that's what has me confused. But anyway, that's enough for today. We'll just let that battery trickle charge. But look at that thing. It's together again. It's as close to ready to go as it's been so far. So, like I say, it's probably time to hire a professional here to get it running and tuned, and then we'll be burning those old tires off. So, that's it for now. Connect my wires. And now we will pressurize it with the carb cleaner. Didn't take. See right there. Can you see that? My hand in the way? That one may have been a little stuck or plugged. I don't know. Didn't just right away work like the others did. It's definitely working now. Yeah, you should change O-rings every time you pull injectors out. You know I'm not doing that. There might have been nothing wrong with these. The fuel in the rail, when I pulled the rail off, was like, it wasn't even fuel. It was yellow. I don't know what you would even... Gas is so weird now. It doesn't go bad the same way gas used to go bad. It's like, just turns to, I don't know. I may have just had a shit pile of old gas. But I mean, these things are definitely firing, which is good. It's just one more thing I can verify. That's, as long as I have power to the injectors and they're grounding properly, they are in fact working. I don't know how long this van might have sat from the time it was decommissioned until I got it. It may have sat for a while. But this all still doesn't add up to not like running at all. So one by one I eliminate things, and it still might just be something. Something in the tune, maybe, that I'm just not seeing or hearing about. Although it's really odd, there's so much information, especially about LS swaps. It seems really odd that I would have a problem that no one else has ever had. And yet, I'm just not finding... The ones that sound kind of similar have all been a really easy, simple fix. Which I'm sure mine is too. I just don't know yet what that is. What that fix is. Ooh. Give it two positives and it just doesn't even... just beauty. Beauty! It's good to know. Good to know. All right. You've done your job, little apparatus. Well done. Injector's cleaned. Now we'll blow everything clean on that end of the deal. So yeah, this is just literally 5/8 heater hose, fuel line, vacuum line, and then I just squeezed it in the vise here. It held enough pressure to blow out the injector anyway, so kind of cool. I will save that in a special place that I will never find it again. Yeah, just throw it on the floor. Perfect. And it's back apart again. I've done this once before, where I was thinking, there's got to be something mechanically wrong with this engine for the timing to be so far off. And so I had pulled this apart. I had the timing cover off, actually, and could find nothing wrong. And so I put it all back together thinking, okay, back to computer. There's got to be something in the tune. There's something. And having now been through the tune and the injectors, as you saw, and like one by one, I'm crossing things off the list. I always think of something else, check it out. That's also not, can't find the problem, but I've determined a lot of things that the problem isn't. And so once I was logging, I managed to and I'm learning the whole HP tuners thing as I go as well. And so I had figured out now how to do some logging stuff. And so I logged a couple more parameters and discovered, oh, the camshaft is running at minus 50 some degrees while we're cranking. Well, that sort of, in my mind, said, there's something wrong with this cam phaser, because when it's cranking, it should be at rest, which is not minus 50 degrees. The spring should be holding it at, and I forget now, but it's around 11, maybe minus 11. I forget. But it seemed to me that while it was cranking, it was losing ground on the timing side, which made me think maybe the spring was broken, the spring was whatever. You Google that, it never happens. It's not a problem anybody has that I can find. So back to thinking, but anyways, in my mind, I was thinking, okay, that's got to be it. We're back to mechanical problems. Pulled the thing apart again, and at least to this point, I didn't get the cover off, didn't pull the balancer, I should say the crank pulley. It's not a balancer, but down at this point, I could get my wrench on the cam bolt, which is also the actuator valve-ish thing deal for the VVT, and it appears to be fine. I can move it just a few degrees, which is probably the play in the chain, not so much a play in anything in the spring, but enough to know that actually no, nothing's broken there. It's actually fine. So now I'm basically, after all of this, back to exactly where I started, in that I have no idea why it's doing what it's doing. So I have ordered another ECM because while initially I thought, oh, this computer must be fried, I'm now, after a year and messing around with everything I can possibly think of, thinking, you know what, this computer must be fried. So, yeah. For a couple $100, I found a guy that's going to send me a programmed one pretty much for like 200 Canadian, which is, it's worth it at this point for me. Even if it does turn out by some weird chance that this one is fine, at least then I can rule that out, because at this point I have no way of ruling out the fact that this ECM is just fried. No matter what I do in terms of the tune, absolutely, and you can see by all the clips I've included of the thing cranking and popping and farting. I've been threatening to actually name this truck Pop Fart, but yeah, it doesn't matter what I change on that tune, it does exactly the same thing. So, yeah. Anyway, we're about a week away from seeing that new ECM. I'll go trucking for the week, and hopefully next weekend I throw that ECM in here and it just fires right up. And then I'll think, spent a year. But anyway, like I've said to several people already, I'm learning things, you know? Everything that I figure out on here is something I didn't know. So that's a big part of this project for me, is getting out of the old stuff and into, well, this is still old stuff, but you know, we've only been doing these LS swaps for like 20 years. So, you know, other people, myself. But anyway, that's where I'm at. So just so you know, truck still sits here looking pretty, won't run, but I think, well, we have to be getting close to the right track. I have priced out a carb manifold. So, I mean, it's been awfully tempting just to throw a carb and an MSD controller on the ignition and call. Actually, you know, part of me, the Uncle Tony's garage side of me, really wants to just get the distributor conversion and literally throw a points distributor and a carburetor on this motor. But that would cost as much as a Holly Terminator. So really, it would be pretty hard to justify, other than the fact that it would be probably the only points driven LS out there. But at any rate, that's where I'm at. Really no further ahead than I have been, other than I've learned things along the way, and yeah, it will run, it will drive. There are people in my life who have pretty well given up on the fact that it ever will, but it will. We're still really close. But that's the LS update, the S10 update, the LS10 update. It's, you know, I was almost ready to order tires last year, because I do need to replace the back tires, but I thought, I'll get it running first. I'm driving, so with any luck, I am going to have to buy some tires really soon. Have a good Sunday.